The starward Hope drifted through the endless black of space, her silver hull catching the light of distant stars. She was not a warship. She carried no weapons that could threaten anyone. She was an exploration vessel, built to study new worlds and make peaceful contact with other species. On board were 847 souls, including scientists, engineers, pilots, and their families. Children ran through her corridors, laughing and playing, unaware that they were about to become the spark that would change the galaxy forever. Captain Daniel stood on the bridge watching the stars through the main. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had spent 30 years in space, and he loved every moment of it. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, running scans and checking systems. Everything was peaceful. Everything was normal. "Captain," said Lieutenant Laura from the tactical station. She was young, barely 30, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. "I am picking up a ship on long-range sensors. It is big, really big." Daniel turned to look at her display. The ship was massive, at least 10 times the size of the starward Hope. Its design was elegant but cold, all sharp angles and dark metal. He recognized it immediately. Everyone in the galaxy knew that design. He said quietly, "The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 900 years. They were the most powerful species anyone had ever known. Their technology was centuries ahead of everyone else. Their fleet was unstoppable, and they had kept peace through one simple method: absolute fear. No one challenged no one even thought about it. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They were new to the galactic community, still learning the rules, still trying to find their place. They considered them primitive and unimportant. Most species did. "They are hailing us," Laura said. "Put it through." The flickered and a face appeared. It was, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The being wore a military uniform covered in medals and symbols of rank. His expression was one of complete contempt. "Human vessel," they said. "You are near the border of Imperial space. Leave immediately." Daniel raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "We mean no harm. We are simply conducting a survey of this region. We will adjust our course and move away from your border. We apologize for any concern we may have caused." The 4 eyes narrowed. "You have 60 seconds to leave." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. They were a survey ship. They could not jump to faster-than-light speed in 60 seconds. It took at least 5 minutes to charge the drive. "Sir, we need more time," Daniel said, keeping his voice calm. "Our drive requires several minutes to charge. We cannot leave in 60 seconds. Please, give us the time we need." They smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Your time is not my concern." On the warship, Admiral leaned back in his command chair. He had served the Empire for 200 years, and he had grown bored. There had been no wars, no battles, no challenges. The galaxy was quiet, and he hated it. These humans were nothing. They were insects, barely worth noticing. But they had come near his border, and that was enough of an excuse. "Admiral," his second officer said, "they are a civilian vessel. They have children on board." "I am aware," replied Fire. The weapons officer hesitated. "Admiral, this could cause problems. The humans might complain to the Galactic Council." Laughed. "The humans? What will they do? They have no fleet, they have no power, they are nothing. Fire the weapon and let us be done with this." The officer obeyed. On the starward Hope, Laura saw the energy spike on her sensors a full second before the weapon hit. "Captain, they are firing." Daniel did not have time to respond. The weapon struck the starward Hope with enough force to crack a small moon. The ship shattered like glass, breaking into 1,000 pieces that scattered across the void. In an instant, 847 lives ended. Families were torn apart. Children who had been laughing moments ago were gone. But Laura survived. She did not know how. One moment she was at her station, and the next she was floating in an escape pod, bleeding from a wound on her forehead. The pod had launched automatically when the ship began to break apart. It had saved her life. She looked through the small window and saw the remains of the Starboard Hope drifting in the darkness. Pieces of hull, fragments of equipment, and bodies. So many bodies floating in the cold of space. Laura began to cry. She cried for her friends. She cried for the families. She cried for the children who would never grow up. And then slowly her tears stopped. Something else took their place, something cold and hard and unbreakable. She activated the pod's communication system and began recording. "This is Lieutenant Laura of the Starboard Hope. Our ship has been destroyed by a warship. We were unarmed. We were not hostile. We asked for time to leave and they killed us anyway. There were 847 people on board, including children. I am sending this message to Earth along with all sensor data from the attack. The galaxy needs to know what happened here. Humanity needs to know." She sent the message and then sat back, alone in the darkness. 3 days later, the message reached Earth. It played on every screen, in every home, in every city. People watched in silence as they saw the Starboard Hope die. They heard Laura's voice. They saw the sensor data that proved the humans had done nothing wrong. President Moore stood in his office, watching the message for the 10th time. His hands were shaking, not with fear, with something else entirely. His aide entered the room. "Mr. President, the Empire has released a statement. They are calling it pest control. They say we should be grateful they only destroyed one ship." Moore turned off the screen. His face was calm, but his eyes were not. "Get me the Joint Chiefs," he said. "Get me every military leader we have, and get me our best scientists." "What are we going to do, sir?" The president looked out the window at the sky above Washington. Somewhere out there, 847 of his people were dead, families destroyed, children murdered, and they were laughing about it. "We are going to teach the galaxy a lesson," he said quietly, "a lesson they will never forget." The Empire had just made the worst mistake in their 900-year history. They had attacked humanity, and humanity was about to show them why that was a very, very bad idea. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Starboard Hope, and the galaxy had noticed something strange. The humans had gone completely silent. No diplomatic messages, no angry protests, no demands for justice. Nothing. Human space had become a black void of communication, and no one knew why. On the High Sovereign sat upon his throne of black crystal, listening to reports from his advisors. He was ancient by any standard, having ruled the empire for 400 years. His 4 eyes were cold and calculating, and his face showed no emotion. "The humans remain quiet, my lord," said one of his advisors. "We expected them to send diplomats begging for mercy. We expected threats, perhaps, or at least complaints to the Galactic Council. But there has been nothing." Waved a hand dismissively. "They are probably hiding in fear. They know they cannot challenge us. They are accepting their place in the natural order." "My lord," said another voice, "I am not so certain." Turned to look at the speaker. She was not. She was a member of a species known for their wisdom and caution. Her name was Ambassador Torin, and she served as the representative to the court. "Speak," commanded. Stepped forward, her silver robes flowing behind her. "I have studied humans for many years. They are a fascinating species, and I must warn you, my lord, that their silence is not a sign of fear. It is a sign of something far more dangerous." Laughed. "Dangerous. The humans, they are primitive, they have no fleet, they have no weapons worth mentioning. What could they possibly do?" "That is what everyone thought about them on their own world," said. "Humans were not always the dominant species on Earth. They were small and weak compared to many other creatures, but they survived. They became the rulers of their planet. Do you know why?" "Enlighten me." "Because humans hold grudges," said. "They invented something called generational memory. When one group of humans wrongs another, the hatred can last for centuries. They pass it down from parent to child, from child to grandchild. They never forget, and they never forgive. Looked bored, interesting but irrelevant. There is more, continued. Humans invented something they call total war. Most species fight limited conflicts. They battle for territory or resources and then they make peace. Humans do not always do this. When they feel truly wronged, they fight until their enemy is completely destroyed. They do not stop. They do not negotiate. They simply keep fighting until there is nothing left. You overestimate them. And you attacked their children, said quietly. The Starward Hope had families on board. It had young ones. Among humans, harming children is the greatest crime imaginable. I have read their history, my lord. When someone harms their children, humans become something else entirely. They become monsters, and they do not stop until justice is served. Stood from his throne, anger flashing across his face. You forget your place, ambassador. The Empire has ruled this galaxy for 900 years. We have crushed every species that ever challenged us. The humans are nothing. They are insects, and insects do not threaten empires. Bowed her head. As you say, my lord, I only wish to offer a warning. She left the throne room and returned to his seat. The warning stayed in his mind longer than he wanted to admit, but he pushed it away. The humans were nothing. They would accept their loss and move on. They had no choice. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, President Moore stood before a gathering of every world leader, every military commander, and every top scientist that humanity had. The meeting was held in a massive underground facility that officially did not exist. The room was filled with thousands of people, all of them waiting to hear what the president had to say. 3 months ago, began, the Empire murdered 847 of our people. They killed scientists. They killed families. They killed children. And when we asked why, they called it pest control. The room was silent. The anger was so thick you could almost touch it. I have spoken with every nation on Earth, continued. I have spoken with every colony we have built among the stars, and we are all in agreement. For the first time in human history, every single human being stands united. There are no more borders. There are no more divisions. There is only one thing, justice for our dead. General Palmer stepped forward. He was a large man with a shaved head and eyes that had seen too many battles. Mr. President, I would like to show everyone what we have been working on. Nodded, and the lights dimmed. A massive holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing blueprints and designs that made the military leaders gasp. For the past 40 years, said, we have been secretly developing weapons and ships that we never revealed to the galaxy. We knew that someday someone might attack us. We prepared for that day. They think we are primitive. They think we have nothing. They are wrong. The hologram showed warships unlike anything humanity had ever built before. They were sleek and deadly, covered in weapons that used technologies the galaxy had never seen. We have 300 of these ships under construction in hidden shipyards throughout the asteroid belt, continued. We can have them ready in 5 months. They have no idea they exist. President Moore looked out at the crowd. The galaxy thinks we are weak. The galaxy thinks we will accept this and move on. The galaxy is wrong. We will not beg for peace. We will not ask for mercy. We will build our fleet, and we will teach the lesson that the universe will remember for the next 1,000 years. The room erupted in cheers. For the first time since the attack, humanity felt something other than grief. They felt hope. They felt purpose. And underneath it all, they felt a cold, patient anger that would not be satisfied until justice was done. On a medical station orbiting Mars, Lieutenant Laura sat in her room, watching the stars. She had recovered from her physical wounds, but the mental ones would never fully heal. She still saw the faces of her friends when she closed her eyes. She still heard the children laughing. A doctor entered her room. "Lieutenant, you have a visitor." Laura looked up as General Palmer walked in. He sat down across from her, his face serious. "I watched your transmission," he said. "The whole world watched it. You survived for a reason, Lieutenant, and I am here to offer you a choice." "What choice?" "We are building a fleet," said. "We are going to war, and I want you to be part of it. I want you there when we make the pay for what they did." Laura thought about the bodies floating in space. She thought about the children who would never grow up. She thought about the contempt in the Admiral's eyes. "When do I start?" she asked. Smiled. "Welcome to the fleet, Lieutenant. Let us show the galaxy what happens when you make humanity angry." The silence had lasted 3 months, but it was about to end. And when it did, the galaxy would never be the same again. 8 months had passed since the destruction of the Starboard Hope. The galaxy had almost forgotten about the incident. They had returned to their normal routine of quiet dominance, and life continued as it always had. Station was a border outpost, a massive structure that floated in the darkness between stars. It was home to 50,000, including soldiers, administrators, and their families. Governor ruled the station with a bored efficiency. Nothing ever happened at. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was the most boring assignment in the Empire. That was about to change. Commander Cole stood on the bridge of the human warship Vengeance, watching the countdown on his display. Around him, 50 other human warships waited in the darkness, their engines cold, their weapons charged. They had traveled through faster-than-light space for 3 days to reach this point, and now they waited for the signal. Was young for a commander, only 35 years old. He had short black hair and calm brown eyes that hid a burning fury. His younger brother had been on the Starboard Hope. His brother's wife had been on the Starboard Hope. Their 2 children had been on the Starboard Hope. Had listened to Laura's transmission 100 times, and each time his resolve grew stronger. "Commander," said his tactical officer, "all ships report ready." Nodded. "Send the signal, begin the attack." 50 human warships activated their engines and burst out of the darkness, heading straight for station. On the station, Governor was eating his evening meal when the alarms began to scream. He dropped his food and ran to the command center, his 4 eyes wide with confusion. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Ships, Governor," said his sensor officer, his voice shaking. 50 ships approaching at high speed." "Whose ships, pirates, rebels?" The sensor officer looked at his screen and his face went pale. "They are human, Governor." Felt his blood run cold. "That is impossible. The humans have no warships. They are primitive." "Their ships are heavily armed, Governor. They are unlike anything in our database, and they are not slowing down." Grabbed a communication device. "Hail them now." The flickered and a human face appeared. Commander Cole looked at the governor with eyes that held no warmth, no mercy, no room for negotiation. "Station," said, "you are about to face justice for the murder of 847 innocent people. You have one chance to surrender. Take it, or we will take this station by force." Tried to sound confident. "You are making a terrible mistake, human. The Empire will crush you for this." "Your Empire already made its mistake," replied. 8 months ago. Now you will learn the cost." The transmission ended. Turned to his military commander. "Launch all fighters. Activate all weapons. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the Empire." The defenders launched everything they had. 300 fighters poured out of the station, and massive energy weapons charged and fired at the approaching human fleet. It should have been enough. It should have been more than enough. It was not. Lieutenant Amy sat in the cockpit of her fighter, part of a squadron of human attack craft that launched from the Vengeance. She was 28 years old, with hair tied back and blue eyes that sparkled with determination. She had joined the military the day after watching Laura's transmission. She had trained harder than anyone in her class, and now she was about to show what human pilots could do. "All fighters," she said into her radio, "follow my lead. Stay tight, hit hard, and show no mercy. Her squadron dove into the mass of fighters, and the battle began. They had expected the humans to fight like everyone else in the galaxy. They expected predictable tactics, careful formations, and a respect for the overwhelming numbers. They were wrong. Human pilots fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They took risks that would have been considered insane. They worked together with perfect coordination. They pushed their ships beyond their limits, performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. And they never, ever stopped attacking. Amy shot down her first fighter in the opening seconds of the battle, then her second, then her third. Her squadron tore through the enemy formation like wolves through sheep, and they began to panic. On the Vengeance watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. All capital ships advance, target their weapon systems, disable the station but minimize civilian casualties. The human warships moved forward, their weapons firing with deadly precision. Energy beams that should have destroyed human ships were absorbed by advanced shields. Human weapons punched through armor like it was made of paper. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The defense fleet was destroyed. The station's weapons were disabled, and 50,000 stared in shock at the human ships that now surrounded their home. Cole appeared on every screen in the station. People of station, your military has been defeated. Your weapons have been disabled. We have no wish to harm civilians. Surrender Governor to us and no more blood will be shed today. Inside the station, tried to run. He made it 3 steps before his own officers grabbed him and dragged him to the docking bay. An hour later stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, his hands bound, his 4 eyes filled with fear. You cannot do this, he said. The Empire will destroy you. You have no idea what you have started. Cole looked at him with cold eyes. We know exactly what we have started, and now you are going to send a message for us. They placed in front of a camera and forced him to speak. The message was broadcast across the entire galaxy, reaching every species, every world, every station. This is Governor of Station, he said, his voice shaking. The station has fallen to human forces. Their ships are unlike anything we have ever faced. Their weapons are beyond our understanding, and they have a message for the Empire. The camera shifted to show Cole, standing behind the governor. 9 months ago, said, your Empire murdered 847 innocent people. You called it pest control, you laughed about it. You thought we would do nothing. You were wrong. We are humanity. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we are coming. He leaned closer to the camera. Tell your High Sovereign to prepare himself. Tell Admiral that his time is running out. And tell the galaxy that the 900 years of peace are over. The age of humanity has begun. The transmission ended, and silence fell across the galaxy. The High Sovereign watched the message with growing horror. Ambassador Torren's warning echoed in his mind. He had dismissed her words as foolishness. He had called the humans insects. Now he understood the truth. The insects had teeth, and they were very, very angry. He called for his admirals and generals. He called for his scientists and engineers. And for the first time in 900 years, the Empire began to prepare for war. But it was already too late. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. 2 years had passed since the fall of Station, and the war had gone worse for the Empire than anyone could have imagined. The humans had taken 47 systems. They had won every major battle. They had shattered the myth of invincibility, and the galaxy was watching. The general stood before High Sovereign, delivering a report that made his stomach turn. We have lost contact with the 7th Fleet, said. They were defending the Moran system. The humans attacked with overwhelming force. The battle lasted 6 hours. We have no survivors. Sat on his throne, his 4 eyes staring at nothing. He had aged decades in 2 years. The confidence that once filled him was gone, replaced by something that looked very much like fear. How many ships did they have? Asked. 200 warships, my lord, but it is not just the numbers. Their technology is advancing faster than ours. Every battle they improve, every victory they grow stronger. It is as if they are learning from us while we learn nothing from them. Slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. This is impossible. We have ruled this galaxy for 900 years. We have crushed every enemy we have ever faced. How can these humans be defeating us? Because they are not fighting like anyone else, said quietly. They fight with a fury we have never seen. They take risks no other species would consider, and they have something we do not have. What? A reason to fight, replied. Every human soldier carries the memory of the starward hope. Every human pilot thinks of the children who died that day. They are not fighting for territory or resources. They are fighting for revenge, and that makes them unstoppable. Was silent for a long moment. What do you suggest? Peace, said. We must seek peace. We must offer them whatever they want. If we do not stop this war soon, they will reach and if that happens, everything we have built will be destroyed. Peace? His voice rose in anger. You want me to surrender to primitives, to insects? The other species will see us as weak. They will challenge us. Everything will fall apart. My lord, it is already falling apart. The other species are already challenging us. They have withdrawn their support. They are refusing to trade with us. Even our own colonies are questioning whether we can protect them. The humans have shown the galaxy that we can be beaten, and the galaxy is beginning to turn against us. Stared at his general with hatred in his eyes, but underneath the hatred there was something else. Fear. Leave me. I will consider your words. Far across the galaxy, the human flagship Remembrance cut through the darkness of space, leading a fleet of 300 warships toward the... Captain Tony Grant stood on the bridge, watching the stars pass by. Tony was 42 years old, a veteran of dozens of battles. He had short gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much death. He did not enjoy war. He did not celebrate the destruction of fleets. But he understood why this war had to be fought, and he was determined to see it through to the end. Behind him, the bridge doors opened, and a woman walked in. She was older now, with lines on her face that had not been there 3 years ago. But her green eyes still held the same fire they had held on the day she survived the destruction of the Starward Hope. Lieutenant Commander Laura had served on 5 ships during the war. She had been wounded twice. She had killed more soldiers than she could count. And now she was here, on the flagship that would lead the final assault on the... Captain, she said, we have a visitor who wants to see you. Tony turned around. Standing behind Laura was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked completely out of place on a warship. This was Dr. Park, the most brilliant scientist humanity had ever produced. Dr. Park, Tony said, nodding respectfully, what brings you to the bridge? Stepped forward, holding a small device in her hand. I wanted to show you something before we reach something that might change how this war ends. She placed the device on a table and activated it. A hologram appeared, showing a planet surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. I call it the Silence, said. It is a weapon unlike anything we have ever created. When activated, it emits a pulse that shuts down all technology within a certain radius. Ships stop working. Weapons go dead. Communications fail. Everything just stops. Tony frowned. How is that different from an electromagnetic pulse? Because it does not harm anything living, explained. No radiation, no explosions, no death. It simply turns off machines. A planet hit by the Silence would lose all technology, but every person on that planet would survive. Laura stared at the hologram. You built a weapon that does not kill anyone. Yes, said, because I know why we are fighting this war. We are fighting for justice, not genocide. They killed 847 of our people, and they must answer for that crime. But we do not need to kill millions of their civilians to make that happen. We can defeat them without becoming monsters ourselves. Tony looked at the device for a long moment. Then he looked at Laura. What do you think? Laura closed her eyes. She thought about the children on the Starward Hope. She thought about their laughter, their dreams, their futures that had been stolen. She wanted them to suffer. She wanted them to feel the same pain she felt. But then she thought about children, children who had done nothing wrong, children who were innocent. The people who killed our families were soldiers and leaders, Laura said slowly. Not children, not civilians. If we can win this war without becoming what they were, then we should. Tony nodded. Dr. Park, how many of these devices do you have? Enough, replied. Enough to end this war. Tony turned back to the stars continued to pass by, each one bringing them closer to the. Then we end it, he said. We capture their leaders. We put them on trial. We show the galaxy that humanity fights for justice, not revenge. And then we build something better. Behind him, Laura allowed herself a small smile. 3 years ago, she had wanted nothing more than to watch the Empire burn. Now she understood that true victory was not about destruction. It was about showing the galaxy a better way. The fleet continued forward, 300 ships carrying the hopes and dreams of all humanity. They were not conquerors, they were not destroyers, they were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. They were justice. And they were coming for the Empire, the hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and ancient. For 900 years, it had been the center of galactic power, the seat of an empire that had ruled through fear and strength. Now, 300 human warships surrounded it, and the age of dominance was about to end. Captain Tony Grant stood on the bridge of the Remembrance looking at the planet below. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. There was no celebration. There was no cheering. This was not a moment for joy. It was a moment for justice. Open a channel to the planet, Tony said. Broadcast on all frequencies. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Captain. Tony took a deep breath. People of this is Captain Tony Grant of the human fleet. We have defeated your military. Your outer defenses have fallen. Your space stations have surrendered, but we have not come here to destroy you. He paused, letting his words sink in. 3 years ago, Admiral ordered the destruction of the Starward Hope, a peaceful exploration vessel carrying 847 innocent people, including children. Your government called it pest control. Your high sovereign laughed about it. That laughter ends today. We do not want war. We never wanted war. But when you attack our families, when you murder our children, you force us to respond. We are here for 2 people, Admiral and High Sovereign. Surrender them to us and this war ends. Refuse, and we will shut down every piece of technology on your planet. No one will die, but your civilization will be returned to a pre-industrial age. The choice is yours. He ended the transmission and waited. On the planet below, chaos erupted. The military tried to mount a final defense, launching every remaining ship and weapon they had. It was a desperate, futile gesture. Human ships destroyed the attackers within minutes, their superior technology making the battle almost one-sided. In the Imperial Palace, High Sovereign watched the destruction of his fleet through a window. His 4 eyes were empty, drained of the arrogance that had once filled them. Beside him, General stood in silence. It is over, said quietly. We have nothing left. Did not respond. He simply stared at the sky, watching human ships move like predators circling their prey. The doors to the throne room burst open and a group of citizens rushed in. They were not soldiers. They were ordinary people, shopkeepers and workers and teachers, people who had spent their lives under rule, and they were angry. You brought this upon us, one of them shouted. Your arrogance, your cruelty. You murdered those humans for no reason, and now they have come for revenge. Tried to summon his old authority. How dare you speak to me this way? I am your sovereign. You are nothing, another citizen replied. The humans have offered us peace. They only want you and the Admiral, and we are going to give them what they want. Guards tried to intervene, but they were outnumbered. Within minutes was bound and dragged from his throne. Across the city, Admiral was found hiding in a military bunker. He fought his captors, screaming about honor and duty, but it made no difference. The people were done following leaders who had brought them to ruin. An hour later, a shuttle approached the Remembrance carrying both prisoners. Tony Grant watched it dock, his face unreadable. Laura stood beside him. She had waited 3 years for this moment. 3 years of pain, of nightmares, of memories that never faded. And now, finally, the people responsible for destroying her life were about to face justice. "Are you ready for this?" Tony asked. Laura nodded. "I have been ready since the day I survived." They walked to the shuttle bay and watched as and were brought out in chains. Looked broken, his pride shattered beyond repair, but still had defiance in his 4 eyes. He glared at the humans around him with pure hatred. Laura stepped forward, standing directly in front of the Admiral, who had ordered the death of everyone she loved. "Do you remember me?" she asked. Looked at her with contempt. "You all look the same to me." "I was on the Starboard Hope," Laura said. "I was the only one who survived. I watched my friends die. I watched children die, and I have carried their memory every single day since then." "They were nothing," spat. "They were insects. You are all insects." Laura looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "No, we are people. We had families. We had dreams. We had futures. And you took all of that away because you were bored, because you wanted to feel powerful, because you thought there would be no consequences." She leaned closer. "Well, here are your consequences." Was silent. 1 month later, a galactic court convened on a neutral station. Representatives from every species in the galaxy attended, and were put on trial for the murder of 847 innocent people. The evidence was overwhelming. Laura, her voice steady as she described the last moments of the Starboard Hope, survivors from the war about atrocities. Scientists presented data proving that the attack was unprovoked and unjustified. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. Was stripped of all power and sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. Received the same sentence. They would live, but they would spend every remaining day knowing that their arrogance had destroyed everything they had built. The empire was dissolved. In its place, a new galactic council was formed, with representatives from every species having an equal voice. Ambassador Torin, who had tried to warn about humanity, was elected as the first leader of the council. Humanity was offered a seat of honor, but they refused special treatment. They asked only to be equal partners in the new galactic community. They had not fought to become new rulers. They had fought to end the old ones. 1 year later, a memorial was built on Earth, in a quiet park overlooking the ocean. It was a simple structure, a wall of black stone with 847 names carved into it. The names of everyone who had died on the Starboard Hope. Laura stood before the memorial, dressed in civilian clothes. She had retired from the military. The war was over, and she had given enough. Now she wanted to live in peace, to honor the memory of her friends by building a life they would have been proud of. A crowd had gathered for the dedication ceremony. President Moore was there. General Palmer was there. Dr. Park was there. And millions more watched from around the world. Laura stepped up to the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. "We did not fight for revenge," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "We did not fight to become conquerors. We fought so that no empire would ever believe they could murder innocents without consequence. We fought so that 900 years of fear would end. We fought because that is what humans do when someone harms our family." She turned to look at the wall of names behind her. These 847 people will never be forgotten. Their death sparked a war, but their memory will build a peace. The galaxy knows now what humanity truly is, We are not prey. We are not insects. We are humanity. And when you harm our children, we will move the stars themselves to bring you to justice." She stepped back from the podium, and the crowd began to applaud. It started slowly, then grew louder, until the sound filled the park and echoed across the world. The war was over, the empire was gone, and humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as something far more powerful. As a species that would never stop fighting for what was right.